I thought I would start the little cat humor since I am from Nestle Purina Petcare. Um, how many in the room currently have a cybersecurity ambassador program? Okay, so not that many. And how many are here to learn how to do one yourself? All right. Now, the rest of you who didn't raise your hands, I hope that you leave here thinking, I need to do this in my organization. And now I have some actions to take that are easy and implementable immediately. So feel free to, you know, I try to keep the conversation or the questions to the end. But if you have a question in the middle and it's really relevant right now, just feel free to ask. I'm flexible with this. I've done this talk a number of times. But let me just give you a little bit of background. I actually came from marketing. I've only been in cybersecurity for 5 years. I was in a marketing technology compliance role before that with marketing. And before that, I was actually doing marketing. It was quite a culture shock for me to move over, but I have to say that I feel like my background in marketing has played a significant role in the success of my ambassador program. So I will talk a little bit about that today. And what we're going to cover today, why do we need ambassadors? What do they do? How do I get started, which is always a question that people ask me. And then I want to talk about some of the unintended but awesome consequences that I have experienced through my ambassador program, which I started 4.5 years ago. And I just want to give you a little history about why I started this. Um, you know, we've talked for the last 2 days about risk and social engineering attacks being our number one threat, and I just kept getting frustrated because you know we have all these metrics that are just like checking the box, and I know everybody, I'm just like saying that the same things that you've heard over and over this weekend, but I just thought, how can I do this differently? How can I do this better? And how can I actually make real connections with people? I have 13,000 end users in my organization. That's just for North America, just the pet care industry in North America. So I have Canada and the United States. And we do about $22 billion in business just in that zone. And so it's significant. You know, I needed to make an impact that was lasting. And when I said, I used to be part of this ambassador program that was for DE&I, and how can I apply what I did there? And the person who had my role before me was like, that's cute. You can try it. It's probably not going to work. You're not going to get anywhere with this, but it's worth a shot. And so I went ahead and took the leap. I had 5 departments at the beginning, and I just did a little pilot just for a year, see how it goes. And I'll share some of the metrics that I got from that pilot later on in the talk. But today I have 65 ambassadors just at my headquarters alone. I have 27 factories, and I have ambassadors in every factory as well. So we have a separate program now just for factories, and I'm happy to talk about any of that in the Slack channel, or if you want to contact me on LinkedIn. But let's just go ahead and I think we don't really need to spend a lot of time here. I think everyone in this room is familiar with these kinds of statistics. But one thing that I thought was very interesting on the $10.5 trillion cybercrime industry is that is 21,000 times more than the illegal drug trade in the world globally. So I thought that was a pretty alarming statistic. And I've heard all different schools of thought. You know, we need to, the people are the people are our defense. They're the ones who need to protect us. They're the ones who need to be part of this. Yes, yes. Then I hear, we don't need any of that. If we have the technology, we shouldn't be burdening people who are from marketing with thinking about cybersecurity. We should have the tech stack in place and everything should be secure and compliant by design, and they don't have to worry about any of these things. But the reality is that social engineering is far too complicated to just rely on technology, and we need both. And I will say this until the day I die. Our CEO says all the time that everything that we do needs to be consumer obsessed. And every time I say that cybersecurity is a consumer obsession, I always get some pushback. How are you making this connection? I'm making the connection because I don't know if you'll remember, there was a breach with one of our competitors a couple of years ago. I'm not going to say the name right now because I just think it's bad karma to do that, and it could have been us. But what happened is that that company could not put their product on the retail shelves. So who do you think the retailers called to fill that shelf space? We had one of our best years ever because of somebody else's ransomware attack. And it was caused by social engineering, and we couldn't even fulfill all the orders that that we needed to fill that retail shelf space that was empty because of a competitor. And my leadership was like, we do not want this to happen to us. What, you know, it honestly helped my cause in every way, but it just breaks my heart. But the thing is, those consumers who came to us, they don't go back. Once your pet finds something that they will eat or tolerate or whatever, you don't switch products again. So, you know, we kept that market share that we gained from somebody else's loss. For the most part, we kept it, and we don't want that to happen to us. And that's what I mean by this is a consumer obsessed behavior, because if anything happens in our factories and we can't produce products, it's our consumers who are ultimately going to suffer. Yes, we will have financial loss. Yes, we will have some reputational damage, but it's those consumers who are in their day-to-day life suffering because their pet can't get the one kind of food that they're willing to eat or the treat that they love. And, you know, just imagine what that company was going through. These are some of the hardships that that Copilot told me happened to this other company. I won't get into a lot of details on that because I think you kind of get the idea. But that's, you know, these are the kinds of reasons that we have a mission with our ambassador program. The mission was to establish a network of cybersecurity ambassadors dedicated to providing personalized awareness experiences for all employees through relatable examples, engaging programs. We strive to make cybersecurity relevant and actionable for everyone every day. And that was one of the biggest things for me, is that, you know, coming from marketing, I came from a mindset of being first to market, being quick. Why is compliance taking so long? Why do I have to do this? This seems ridiculous. That's the Department of No, which we've all heard a million times. And I used to be on the other side of the fence, so I completely understand how this is. But then when I got into cybersecurity and I started to see this is relevant to me all day. This is relevant when I get up in the morning and Alexa is talking to me in my bedroom. I need to be aware of what kind of cyber risk is associated with that. I need to be aware of the cyber risk of my kids and being on their devices at school and not having control over those devices or logging into things that we don't know about. So cybersecurity impacts all of us in a very personal way every single day. So this is my favorite thing that I've done that I brought with me, my marketing skills, to make this pause before button. But this framework, this is a fail-safe framework. Anything that you want to talk about in cybersecurity space, you can fit it into one of these buckets: click, share, or connect. I was actually thinking this morning that with the genesis of all that's happening with deep fakes, that maybe we should add trust to click, share, connect, or trust. But still, trust falls into all three of those categories. But I highly recommend stealing this. I stole the click, share, connect from someone, and I use it every single year. Sometimes I focus on the click, sometimes I focus on the share, and sometimes I focus on the connect, and sometimes it's all three. But this is your fail-safe format for all your topics that you want to do for an ambassador program. The other thing we talked about earlier is, how do you get started? How in the world do you get 65 ambassadors and then 27 more in your factories? What kind of content are you creating? What is this going to look like in 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years? And is it sustainable? And I was overthinking that. I am the queen of overthinking. And I sat on this for a good 6 months, just kind of stewing over, like, needing to have a roadmap, needing to have a plan, needing to know how every single step of this was going to happen. And I called the director of DE&I and I said, hey, when you started this ambassador program, what kind of plan did you put in place for yours? And she said, what are you even talking about? She's like, just get started. If you don't know what this is going to turn into, you don't know how it's going to grow organically, just start. And so I took that advice. A week later, I got buy-in from our executive leadership team, and we just got started. And now we're, like I said, 65 ambassadors later, and I have people from other operating companies under the Nestle umbrella saying, help me do this in my organization, help me scale this. And so that's what I'm working on now, is how to get it scaled across multiple organizations that have different needs and different structures. You know, we're on campus 4 days a week, so I know my people. There are organizations within the Nestle umbrella who are completely remote. So it's going to be different for everyone, but I do feel like you can leave here today with what I share with you and have something tangible that you can implement in your organization, no matter the size, no matter the structure. One of the things that I think is most important is to make the content relevant to people in their daily lives. If you can look at this, you can see these are just some of the types of content that we do. So if we have a new security implementation, so for instance, a couple years ago, we implemented Windows Hello for Business. And my ambassadors were key players in helping us get adoption of Windows Hello. People didn't understand why a PIN number would be as secure or more secure than a password. Excuse me 1 second. But those ambassadors, that peer-to-peer communication that they have, they're able to just talk to their friends in their departments and say, this is why, and this is how it works. Tax scams, we bring some PSAs into the conversation. You know, if there's a topical issue, if it's the holiday season and we want to warn you about those Amazon messages that you get that are fake. We spend a lot of time doing outreach for communities. We actually have a speaker coming in this October from CISA to talk to our parents and grandparents. We're inviting our parents and grandparents to campus to talk about elder fraud. So those are some of the things that we do as part of the ambassador program to make things relevant to people. And then we talk about obviously the basics, phishing, how to report it. We just did back to school this week. How do you keep your kids' devices safe? Here are some things to talk to your kids about, cyberbullying, all of it. One of my favorite things that we did this last year was true crime stories of Purina employees, which was an absolute hit. We have ambassadors who have been part of the kidnapping scams. We've had ambassadors who have had their identity stolen. We've had, you name it, any scam, fraud thing you can think of out there that's happening online. One of my actual employees in my department gave somebody $3,000 on Facebook Marketplace. And then as soon as she hit send, it just hit her like, oh crap, what did I just do? So it can happen to anybody. And sharing these real stories of real employees, people that they know, it makes it feel like you're not alone when something terrible happens. When people are vulnerable and they're willing to share these stories, it has an impact on people, and then it makes people more comfortable sharing their stories or reporting something that they've done, because you just have to make it a safe space for people to feel comfortable reporting and talking about cybersecurity. And then, we've done little things like partnering with HR because we have an identity theft program that you can purchase with your annual benefits. And so we promote that every year. Just little things like this. And then the other thing I will tell you is that I didn't create anything from scratch other than the idea, because I used the existing infrastructure at Purina. I didn't come up with new communication channels. I didn't come up with a new way to reach people. I said, what is already in place and how can I capitalize on that to make this a really effective program and have as little pushback as possible. And so these are just some of the ways that I work through the existing infrastructure at Purina. Obviously you have your own ways, but learn what those ways are. I'm going to tell you exactly how we do this at Purina. Every month we have what is called a floor meeting. The floor meeting is a script that our PR department puts together, and it has sales data. It has announcements about United Way campaigns. It has reminders to people to not text and walk across the parking lot, and then to the drivers to please stop at all the stop signs. So, this floor meeting runs the gamut, but I convinced them to let me put a cybersecurity message into the floor meeting every month. Great. Yes, you can do that. However, the floor meeting script is already too long, so you can have 75 words. Oh boy, right? So 75 words, how in the world am I going to really get people to understand what's happening in 75 words? I don't. So what I do instead, I put that 75 words in there, and then the week before we have the floor meeting, my ambassadors come to a training session with me for 25 minutes. This is the extent of their time. Their ambassadorship takes 25 to 30 minutes a month. It's not a big time commitment. I do all the work for them. Sorry, I have a tendency to do that with these microphones. Every single talk, I'm like, so yeah. So the ambassadors bring me topics. First of all, that's one awesome benefit of having them. But when we do the trainings, I have already bullet points of extra talking points for them. I have an email that they can take and send a follow-up email to their department distribution list. And then I give them some kind of anecdotal stories that are related to Nestle Purina. These are things that have happened in our organization that have impacted us. And that way, when it comes to that 75-word moment in the floor meeting script that their leadership is reading to them while everyone's standing, because this is a document, remember that it includes sales figures and all kinds of confidential information that is not distributed digitally. It is only read out loud, and if you weren't there, you missed it. The cybersecurity message is not confidential, right? So we want to make sure that that gets out there. When it comes time for that cybersecurity message, the ambassador for that group takes over the meeting and adds additional context. So that 75 words either gets read by their VP or by them, but then they're able to say, and this is how it impacts us. And people are doing really cute things, like with the back to school one. A couple of our ambassadors made, you know, those back to school things that kids make that that say like what their favorite food is, what grade they're going into, all of that. So a couple of our ambassadors made those for themselves as part of their presentation, and I thought that was really cute. But the ambassadors get into it too, so that's the fun part. But we just try to make it fun for them. We try to make everything relevant and topical for them, and then they send out that follow-up email. Then the only other role that they play is that they've now become the go-to person in their department for cybersecurity questions. They all know who to come to if they need to escalate. They come straight to me or someone from my team. But for the most part, they're learning. You don't need to have any knowledge of cybersecurity to become an ambassador. You learn on the job, right? You're not going to work in site services and know cybersecurity. You're not going to work in marketing and know cybersecurity. So we want people in every department. So no, you don't have to have any experience. You just come and you learn as you go, and we're here to support you. So they get a lot of questions and they get a lot of encouragement from their teams. And I'm going to show you some of the statistics here. So early on when we ran that original pilot, who in the room has trouble getting their people to take the mandatory training that they're required to take every year? Yeah, it's kind of ridiculous, isn't it? And there's no, like, we're not withholding their bonuses if they don't take the training, but the ambassador groups with ambassadors, they all got their departments to 100%. And all it took was them sending out reminders saying, hey, you still haven't taken yours, can you do this? And now I run a contest every year for the ambassadors so that there's a little bit of fun in there. And this is, okay, just before I go on to these other statistics, since I said that, I just want to remind everyone that I'm very fortunate that I have a budget and I get to do some fun things like that. But you don't need to have funds to run an ambassador program. People like paper certificates that say you did a good job. I mean, you don't need a lot of money to do something like this. But that initial group performed 50% better on avoiding phishing. And then they reported 20% more phishing than groups without ambassadors. So that was what I was able to take to our leadership and say, this is why we need more than 5 ambassadors. That was 4 years ago. And these are just some silly little things, some success stories that people sent me. So on this first one, you see Amy sent out a group notice to her group and said, we just need 6 more people to participate in the training to get to 100%. And she was able to get those 6 people. I love this one on the bottom right. This person, Michelle, is our ambassador, and she said, hey, Michelle, I'm nominating this as a phishing email. And she's like, great catch, report it, okay? Like, so the ambassadors are there to remind people how to report things. And the other thing I do with the ambassadors, I make sure that everyone who wants to sign up to be an ambassador has the personality to be an ambassador. You need to be somebody who is approachable, who your peers, their peers are not intimidated by. You want somebody who is friendly and isn't going to make anyone feel stupid for asking a question, and who really just enjoys cybersecurity. I can't believe how many people actually just love this stuff. And then this other one, gosh, it's been a while since I read this one, but I have a lot of examples like this where ambassadors have been in meetings and they're like, oh my gosh, I just heard them saying that they're going to use this Gen AI tool that you said we couldn't use. And so what should I do? And so they become my eyes and ears as well. And I'm able to help them intervene in a way to get them the tools that they need to do their jobs and run our business the way it needs to be run, but do it in a secure way. And those are things that I wouldn't know. Those are all the secret things that are happening out there that, that get us in trouble, right? So what's in it for the ambassadors? A lot of things. They can put this on their development plan, on their performance plans at the end of the year. They can say, I did these things, I gained leadership skills, I am now have some presentation skills. I have people who are ambassadors who get to do really fun stuff, like maybe your ambassador really likes planning events. So I have a committee of, like a subcommittee of ambassadors who like to help with Cybersecurity Awareness Month and some of the other things that we do throughout the year. I have one woman on my team who is a graphic designer. So when I said, hey, wouldn't it be cute if we did pause with the paw print before you click? And she was like, yeah, that's totally cute. Let's do it. She came up with that for me. I didn't have to hire an agency. You have people in your organization who love to do this stuff. Embrace their talents and bring them to the table and let them do what they love. They will help you 100% of the way. All right, so these are some of the really awesome consequences that I did not expect. One of the things that we hear from our global security organization is, why do we have trouble getting and keeping people in cybersecurity? We lose people. Well, it's a tough job, right? We're working a lot of hours, and it's an ever-changing landscape, and it can be high stress. My ambassadors love cybersecurity so much that when we sent out a survey of how they were enjoying the program so far, 25% of them said that they would like a stretch assignment in my team, or they would like to learn more about cybersecurity as a profession. So I have a built-in pipeline of security and compliance people just waiting for an opening. And I have already in my mind 5 people that I would hire today if I had an opening. All right. Oh, the audits, man. Audits. The external auditors love this program. This is consistently cited as one of our key strengths on every single external audit. We have a group chat with our ambassadors. They are talking about cybersecurity. They are sharing articles. They're saying, guess what happened to me over the weekend? Guess what my mom did? You know, all the things. They're in the chat, and people are helping each other out and sharing resources and sharing stories, and it's amazing. And I mentioned this earlier, the other Nestle operating companies are looking to us to help them figure out how to do this in their organizations. And it has created that two-way communication channel that I mentioned before, where yes, I'm sharing with them, but they're sharing with me. These are the things that we're facing in our business. These are things that are happening in meetings. This is why I need to be here.